In a time when humanity had become a dominant force in the galaxy, Earth's reputation remained a shadow of its true potential. The once proud planet, once the cradle of human civilization, was now seen by other species as a fledgling power and underdog, forever struggling to break free of its violent past. Despite their rapid technological advancements, humans were often mocked by the galaxy's more powerful races, the ancient Aldari, the war-hardened Exons, and the enigmatic HRES. They referred to humanity as the children of the stars, forever questioning whether Earth's species could ever rise above its brutal origins. The galaxy's elite, those who had long mastered the secrets of space, viewed Earth's people as unpredictable and naive individuals capable of both brilliance and destruction. Though humanity had quickly adapted to the stars, their history was still tainted by memories of war and chaos. The galaxy's more established races often whispered about how humans would never be trusted with true power. Even in the vastness of space, Earth's citizens were treated with condescension, as if their existence in the cosmos was little more than a fluke. But there was one human who refused to accept this. Captain Emily Trent was a decorated leader within the Intergalactic Peace Corps, tasked with representing humanity in the most delicate of negotiations. A veteran diplomat, Emily was known for her sharp intellect, her unwavering composure, and, most notably, her ability to resolve conflicts that had long seemed unsolvable. Her skill as a negotiator was unmatched, and yet, despite her success, Emily struggled with the skepticism of the galaxy's leaders. Their disdain for humans was palpable. She was often treated as little more than an ambassador of a species still considered unworthy of true respect. Her latest mission was her most crucial yet, to broker a peace treaty between the Zoltar Empire and the Exithri Alliance, two factions that had been on the brink of war for centuries. The Zoltar, with their brutal tactics and vast resources, had once been allies to the Exithri, a peaceful species dedicated to protecting life across the galaxy. However, a centuries-old resource dispute and the resurfacing of long-forgotten grudges had driven them to the edge of total destruction. Emily's role was to mediate a ceasefire and create a lasting agreement that would stabilize this volatile sector of the galaxy. If she succeeded, humanity's standing in the intergalactic community would be solidified. The mission was already complicated. Both factions were entrenched in their positions, and tempers ran high. The Exithri, who had always prided themselves on their peaceful nature, were suspicious of humanity's involvement. They didn't trust the Zoltar or anyone associated with them. Meanwhile, the Zoltar were condescending, constantly reminding Emily that humans were in no position to dictate the terms of peace between ancient civilizations. Still, Emily remained resolute, certain that she could find common ground between the two powers. If she succeeded, it would prove that humanity, despite its flaws, had the diplomatic skill and intelligence to make a lasting impact on the galaxy. But just as she began to gain traction with the peace talks, something unexpected happened. An encrypted message arrived, interrupting the tense atmosphere of the negotiations. The message was not from any known species, and its source was unidentified. The message contained a single cryptic warning: a force from outside the galaxy is coming. If humanity does not act swiftly, the very fabric of the universe will be torn apart. You, Captain Trent, are the only one who can stop it. The sender, who identified themselves only as the Watcher, claimed that humanity's biology held the key to averting the impending disaster. The Watcher's tone was serious, even urgent, and the message was unlike anything Emily had ever encountered. At first, she dismissed it as a hoax, perhaps a trick designed to distract her from her mission. The galaxy was filled with strange and unexpected phenomena after all. But she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something genuine about the warning. She pushed it aside for the time being, focusing on her mission to mediate the peace talks. However, as the days passed, the galaxy began to experience strange and inexplicable events. There were reports of spatial distortions, entire fleets of ships vanishing without a trace, and power surges that disrupted entire star systems. These anomalies were becoming more frequent and more destructive, and Emily couldn't ignore the possibility that the message was not a hoax. What was worse, the disturbances seemed to be growing closer. The once distant events were now affecting nearby sectors, including the one where Emily was working. The timing was too coincidental to be ignored. As the peace talks between the Zoltar and Exithri crumbled into chaos, Emily realized that something far greater than the dispute between the two factions was at play. The universe itself appeared to be in danger. It was then that Emily knew humanity might be the only species capable of preventing the impending disaster. The message had not been a warning, it had been a call for help. And Emily, whether she wanted to admit it or not, was now at the center of a galactic crisis. The Watcher's words echoed in her mind. You, Captain Trent, are the only one who can stop it. But what exactly was this unknown force? And why was humanity, with its fractured history and tarnished reputation, the key to stopping it? Emily had no answers, but she knew one thing: the peace talks had to be put on hold. The stakes had just become much higher, and the fate of the galaxy now rested in her hands. As the peace negotiations between the Zoltar Empire and the Exithri Alliance continued to unravel, Emily Trent found herself in a rapidly deteriorating situation. Once again, her hopes of creating a lasting peace seemed doomed. Tensions were high, and the long-standing animosities between the two factions were too deep to bridge. Every attempt to mediate was met with more mistrust, more hostility. The Exithri, once so serene and wise, had become paranoid. The Zoltar, proud and aggressive, were unwilling to budge. Despite Emily's best efforts, the prospect of a ceasefire was slipping away. However, just as she thought things couldn't get worse, something unexpected began to unfold. The message from the Watcher had warned her about a force that could tear apart the very fabric of the universe. But that wasn't the only mystery she had to contend with. A new player entered the scene, one even more unsettling than the galactic crisis she was already facing. The ancient and shadowy species known only as the Leviathans had begun to make their presence known. The Leviathans were rumored to be older than any known civilization, beings of immense power, cloaked in secrecy, and possessing technology that far surpassed anything humanity or its allies could imagine. Throughout history, they had remained hidden, staying far away from the conflicts of lesser species. Yet now, they were offering aid to the Zoltar and the Exithri. This was not an act of kindness or diplomacy. The Leviathans' interest was a far more dangerous one, and their motives were shrouded in darkness. Emily was baffled by their sudden interest in the human-led peace talks. These ancient beings, who had always remained aloof, now claimed to have knowledge of the cosmic threat the Watcher had warned her about. They offered their help, but there was a price. Humanity would have to join forces with them against the galactic threat. In exchange for their protection, the Leviathans required humanity's assistance in a long-forgotten, morally questionable mission that could change the very course of history. Emily's heart sank as she contemplated the decision. On one hand, the Leviathans could provide the military might and technological power that humanity needed to survive the approaching cosmic force. Yet, the cost of their alliance was not just steep, it was potentially ruinous. Humanity would have to commit to a mission that could alter the galaxy's balance forever. There was no turning back if they agreed to the Leviathans' terms. But as the negotiations with the Leviathans continued, something else began to emerge. The Exithri alliance wasn't as innocent as Emily had once believed. Over time, Emily learned that the Exithri had been in contact with the Leviathans for centuries, long before humanity ever even considered playing a role in galactic affairs. The Exithri had already made a deal with the Leviathans, an agreement that was sealed long ago. And now, the Exithri seemed to be working in tandem with the Leviathans, their motives unclear. It was as if they were manipulating the very situation Emily had been sent to resolve. The true extent of the Exithri's knowledge of the Leviathans' plans made Emily question everything. The peace talks between the Exithri and the Zoltar Empire, which she had been so invested in, were just a smokescreen. The Exithri didn't want peace, they wanted power. They wanted control. And it seemed they were willing to use humanity as a pawn in a larger game, one that would have consequences for the entire galaxy. At the same time, Emily began to feel the weight of her own government's pressure. Humanity's leaders, desperate to ensure their survival in this new galactic order, saw the Leviathans as an opportunity they could not afford to miss. The threat from the cosmic force was too great, and the technology of the Leviathans could guarantee humanity's safety. A powerful faction within the human government began to push Emily into a corner, demanding that she align with the Leviathans regardless of the moral implications. They believed that if humanity didn't act quickly, the consequences would be disastrous. But Emily had no intention of being used by anyone, not the aliens, and not her own people. As she navigated the shifting political landscape, she found herself increasingly isolated. The Zoltar and Zithri, once at odds with each other, were now united in their dealings with the Leviathans. The lines between allies and enemies were becoming increasingly blurred, and Emily was unsure who she could trust. As she tried to make sense of the complex web of alliances and betrayals, Emily uncovered another shocking piece of information research, suggesting that humanity's biology was uniquely suited to a mysterious, powerful force known as the Nexus. The Nexus was an ancient energy field, a remnant of a forgotten species that predated even the oldest galactic civilizations. According to the research, humanity's genetic makeup had the potential to manipulate the Nexus in ways no other species could. First, Emily thought the Nexus was just another strange anomaly. But as she delved deeper into the research, she began to realize the horrifying truth. While the Nexus could offer unimaginable power, those who attempted to tap into it would risk losing their minds, becoming little more than puppets of an ancient, malevolent intelligence that lurked within the Nexus itself. The idea that humanity could control such power was tempting, but at what cost? Would humanity lose its very soul in the process? The situation was becoming more complicated with each passing day. Emily was torn between the Leviathan's offer of protection and the dark secrets surrounding humanity's potential to tap into the Nexus. The fate of the galaxy seemed to hinge on her decision, but she had no clear path forward. The more she uncovered, the more questions arose. Could humanity really stand up to the cosmic force? Would they sacrifice their moral compass in exchange for survival? And what role would the Nexus play in all of this? As Emily struggled to find answers, the stakes continued to rise. The galaxy was on the brink of collapse, and humanity had to decide whether they would be the ones to save it or whether they would be the ones to destroy it. As the galactic chaos reached a tipping point, Emily Trent found herself trapped in an unimaginable dilemma. The Zoltar Empire and the Xithri Alliance had both fallen under the shadow of the Leviathan's influence, their factions now united against a common cosmic threat. The pressure from every side grew heavier as the stakes rose, with Emily forced to mediate not only between factions, but between an entire universe on the verge of collapse. What had once been a simple peace negotiation was now a battle for the very survival of the galaxy. The Leviathans had become increasingly insistent. Their offer of aid had evolved from a simple plea for assistance to a demand. They revealed that the source of the impending disaster was not some external cosmic force, as Emily had believed. Instead, it was an internal destabilization, an eruption of cosmic chaos triggered by the awakening of the Nexus. The ancient energy field, dormant for eons, was now stirring, and its power was destabilizing entire star systems. Galaxies were beginning to tear apart at their seams, collapsing into oblivion, and the only way to stop it was to control the Nexus before it consumed everything. The Leviathans claimed that only through humanity's unique biology could the Nexus be fully unlocked and harnessed. The energy of the Nexus, they believed, was the key to preventing the cosmic collapse. Humanity's unpredictable nature, the very thing that had been humanity's downfall in the eyes of other species, was now seen as the only thing capable of stabilizing the energy. Emily's heart raced with the revelation. She had always known humanity had a unique potential, but this was something far beyond anything she had ever imagined. Caught between the urgent need to act and the overwhelming uncertainty of the situation, Emily made a decision. She would attempt to wield the Nexus herself. There had to be a way to control it, to use it to stop the unraveling of the universe. But as she delved deeper into the power, she soon discovered a truth far more terrifying than she could have ever anticipated. The Nexus was not just a power source. It was an ancient, sentient entity, a presence that had existed long before any known civilization, older than even the Leviathans themselves. And it did not want to be controlled. As Emily's consciousness began to touch the raw power of the Nexus, she felt it, the cold, distant presence that resided within. It was vast and incomprehensible, like the void itself, and it whispered to her, not in words, but in emotions, visions, and flashes of knowledge. It showed her the universe in its rawest form, before stars and galaxies, before civilization. The Nexus had always existed, and it had always known its purpose, to balance the universe. But there was something more. It had created humanity. Emily's mind reeled at the revelation. Humanity, with all its imperfections, was not some random species born of chaos. It was a carefully planted seed by the Nexus itself. Humanity had been engineered with a singular purpose: to stabilize the universe. The chaotic nature of humans, their unpredictability, their boundless potential, these were not flaws, but strengths. The Nexus had placed humanity on this path, allowing them to grow, to evolve, to spread across the galaxy, so that when the time came, they could serve as the key to restoring balance. The Nexus revealed that the galaxy had entered a cycle. Civilizations would rise and fall, and in the end, the balance would tip too far in one direction, leading to collapse. The Nexus was meant to correct that imbalance, but its power was too great to be wielded by just any species. Humanity's role was to stabilize that power, to contain it, to make sure the cycle was not broken. The Nexus itself could not act directly. It needed humanity to guide it, to hold it in check. But humanity's involvement with it came with a warning. If the Nexus were abused, if its power were misused or unleashed fully, it would consume everything in its path, annihilating all life, all creation. Emily's mind swirled as the full weight of the situation hit her. The very fate of the galaxy depended on her understanding of humanity's place in the universe. The Leviathans, the Exithri, the Zoltar, all were pieces in a much larger puzzle, one that was far beyond the scope of any one species. They had all been blind to the true nature of the Nexus, to the fact that humanity was the fulcrum upon which the galaxy's balance rested. The Leviathans, with their ancient wisdom, had long known of the Nexus, but had never understood its true nature. They had mistaken it for a simple weapon, a tool to control and dominate the universe. But the Nexus was no mere object of power. It was a sentient force that had chosen humanity as its stewards. If humanity failed, the Nexus would not just fade away, it would destroy the galaxy. As the full realization hit her, Emily's heart pounded in her chest. The decision that lay before her was one that could destroy everything. She had two choices: use the Nexus to stabilize the galaxy, saving millions of lives, but at the cost of losing her own mind to the overwhelming force of the Nexus and possibly transforming humanity into something unrecognizable. Or she could abandon the Nexus altogether, severing humanity from the destructive power that threatened the universe, and allow the galaxy to find its own way. But this would mean abandoning the only chance to stop the cosmic collapse, and the universe might very well fall apart in the wake of the Nexus's awakening. The emotional weight of the choice was unbearable. Emily understood now that she was not just making a decision for herself, for humanity, or even for the galaxy. She was standing at the precipice of a new understanding of the universe itself. In the end, the choice would not just shape the future of humanity, it would shape the very fabric of existence. As the Nexus pulsed within her mind, she felt a deep, ancient sorrow. The universe had always been in a state of flux, teetering on the edge of chaos and order. And humanity, with all its flaws and strengths, was the key to keeping that balance. Emily knew that her decision would echo throughout the cosmos, reverberating through time and space. With a heavy heart, she realized that the future of the galaxy rested on her shoulders, and she would have to make the ultimate sacrifice to save everything or risk losing it all. Emily stood before the Nexus, its vast, pulsating energy swirling before her like a dark ocean, endless and infinite. The power it held was immense, a force that could shape the future of the galaxy or destroy it entirely. She could feel its presence in her mind, a constant hum of potential, an overwhelming temptation to reach out and claim control. The Nexus called to her, offering humanity the power to reshape the universe, to prevent the collapse, to avoid the impending cosmic disaster. But the cost was clear. To tap into its power was to risk losing her very soul, to sacrifice everything that made humanity human. She closed her eyes, knowing that her choice would reverberate throughout the galaxy. The galaxy, with its ancient civilizations and advanced technology, had never seen anything like the Nexus. To wield it would give humanity unparalleled strength, but it would also forever change the essence of who they were. Emily understood now that the true test was not in conquering the Nexus, but in resisting the temptation to use it. Her mind flashed back to the warning of the Watcher and the message it had left her. Humanity's strength lies not in godlike powers, but in their ability to choose. It was a choice between becoming something they were not, something inhuman, or remaining true to themselves. Despite the weight of the galaxy's future resting on her shoulders, Emily chose the latter. With a heavy heart and a resolute mind, she reached out and activated the sequence to seal the Nexus, preventing anyone human or alien from tapping into its terrifying power. The energy of the Nexus screamed in protest. The very fabric of space around her trembled, but she held firm. The Nexus would not be wielded. Not by the Leviathans, not by the Exithri, and certainly not by humanity. The Leviathans, who had watched from the shadows, observed her decision in silence. Their fleets hovered above distant worlds, their ancient, terrifying presence looming like a dark cloud. Emily knew that they had been waiting for this moment, expecting humanity to fall into the same trap that had claimed countless other civilizations before them. They had underestimated humanity's resolve. The Leviathans had assumed that, given the choice, humanity would seize the power of the Nexus to rule and dominate. But they had misjudged humanity. The Leviathans, frustrated by the outcome, withdrew their support. Their ships disappeared into the void, leaving behind a silence that felt as heavy as the decisions Emily had made. Yet, there was a strange respect in their departure. They had come to see that humanity's true strength did not lie in the power they could wield, but in their resilience, their capacity to endure and adapt without relying on godlike forces. The lesson had been learned, even if they refused to acknowledge it fully. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The Exithri Alliance, too, had been forced to reevaluate their position. For centuries, they had believed in the idea of balance through power, through control of the forces that shaped the universe. But Emily's decision showed them something different, that balance could be achieved through wisdom, restraint, and the willingness to let go of the need for control. The Exithri, once the galaxy's most enlightened race, saw in Emily's actions a lesson they had forgotten, that true peace comes not from domination, but from understanding and cooperation. In the aftermath of the sealing of the Nexus, the galaxy's view of humanity changed. No longer seen as a naive species, struggling to prove itself, humanity was now respected for its strength in resisting the temptation of godlike power. Diplomatic ties between species strengthened, and humanity's place in the galaxy was solidified not through military might or technological superiority, but through the resilience shown in the face of overwhelming odds. The galaxy watched as humanity rose, not as conquerors, but as stewards of their own future, showing the universe that the true strength of a species lies in its ability to learn, adapt, and grow. Emily Trent returned to Earth, her mission completed but her journey far from over. As she gazed upon the blue planet from orbit, she reflected on how far humanity had come. She thought of the battles fought, the alliances forged, and the hard decisions made along the way. She had always believed in humanity's potential, but it was in this moment, with the Nexus sealed away, that she understood the true meaning of her belief. Humanity was not meant to control the universe, it was meant to coexist with it, to protect it, and to learn from the lessons that it offered. Yet, as the final transmission from the Nexus flickered to life, Emily's thoughts were interrupted by a chilling revelation. The transmission was a message, sent directly to her. She had expected it to be a sign of victory, a confirmation that the galaxy was safe, but what she heard instead made her blood run cold. "You were never meant to control the Nexus," the message echoed, its voice both ancient and foreboding. "You were meant to be its ward." Emily's heart stopped. The Nexus had not been a weapon, nor had it been a tool to prevent the galaxy's destruction. It was something else entirely. Humanity had been chosen not to wield its power, but to guard it. The Nexus was not simply an energy field. It was an entity, a force of nature that existed to maintain the delicate balance of the universe. And humanity's role was not to control it, but to protect it from those who would misuse it. The realization struck Emily like a lightning bolt. The true challenge for humanity had only just begun. They had sealed the Nexus, yes, but that was only one chapter in a much larger story. The galaxy was still full of threats, both known and unknown, and now, humanity's responsibility was to ensure that the Nexus, with its unfathomable power, never fell into the wrong hands again. As Emily stared out into the vastness of space, she understood that the galaxy's survival no longer depended on technological power or political might. It depended on humanity's ability to rise to this new challenge, to protect the Nexus and safeguard the universe's balance. The future was uncertain, and the task before them was daunting. But Emily had never been more certain of one thing: humanity had the strength to face it. And with that realization, she knew that their greatest trial was only just beginning.